Welcome to today's D-Hub MT YouTube channel podcast brought to you by the European Digital Innovation Hub powered by MDIA, Malta Digital Innovation Authority. Our guest speaker today is Stefan Farrugia, who is an innovator with deep tech industry knowledge who has championed business intelligence services to customers. He is recognized for his approach of using innovation on top of existing technologies to simplify and reach client objectives effectively and efficiently. We welcome you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
What has led you to do what you do today in such a vast industry?
So my career starts back as a software developer. So I started off, I still remember working with the old technologies. And when I was 8 years, it was my first program at the time. And after that, I started studying software for a career. Then I joined government. I started off at the NSO. And from then, I touched on data, and that has become the passion up to today. When I left the NSO and went to work abroad, there is where I opened my mind to how data can be used within organizations as an asset.
This would lead me to my next question. Why is data so important? Not to just businesses, but to a nation as well.
So,
what does data give us?
So, first of all, the time of the gut feel is long gone. Today, the businesses, and even if you look at the customers today, the changes in the patterns of the customers change so fast that it's impossible to understand exactly what's happening unless you analyze the data that you have. To give you an example, fashion. To give you an example, we work a lot with fashion, so we understand it quite well. The changes, previously in past years, they used to order same sizes for the same shoes. So it was a pretty standard pattern. But then you go afterwards for sales and you find the same sizes, which have not been sold. Today, with patterns and with market basket analysis, you can analyze and find exactly through data what type of sizes are required from the market. And this is a simple example because then it's the styles, it's the colors, it's the actual requirement of your customer DNA. And this is not just in fashion, but in every other industry. Then you have other industries like shipping, to give you an example, where digital transformation is still lagging behind because there is still a lot of manual processes, whereby data is extremely necessary because there's a huge burden on the manual input, and they're making mistakes. It's more taxing than it is on fashion. I mean, because if you order a size, I mean, you lost some money, but it's about people's life. So from one end to another, there's a huge gap. Moreover, when it comes to statistics, then it's important for us to sort of keep abreast and make sure that the data we're presenting to our European counterparts is always the same. I mean, we've seen in the past countries like Greece who started changing figures from here and there. The GDP started moving around and until they defaulted in the past. So it's important to have consistency because that results in credibility at the end of the day.
A curious question. Does data has an expiry, and how does it work out? So the data I collect today would be relevant to when?
It depends on the industry. So as we see in the market, patterns differ from a vertical to another. To give you an example, COVID has shifted a lot the paradigm of the usual patterns. Okay. First of all, if we look at, because we also work in the private educational industries, there the patterns have gone haywire. I mean, what was true in 2019 is not true today for two main reasons. First of all, I mean, there's digital and e-learning more practical. So the schools, the English language schools are not the same as they were beforehand. And secondly, when it comes to, if we're talking about the English language schools, now because of Brexit, there's a bit of a reluctance to go back to the UK. So it's a complete paradigm. Moreover, you had Russian students coming to Europe to study. Currently, they're not, obviously. But then you have other Middle Eastern countries who are coming. So it's a complete shift in paradigm.
Things happening would disrupt certain data collected.
Definitely. So
that events, it has an impact.
Events in the world create a lot of challenges when it comes to battles. I go back to the shipping industry. So when the war started, and the Ukraine war started, I mean, you had crews which were, I mean, the most relevant, the best crews in the world are a combination of Ukrainian and Russians. So in a case where you're sending tankers to Russia before the sanctions occurred, where you had Ukrainians and Russians there were many issues. So the data then started presenting these patterns whereby ships had to go to Istanbul, relocate their Ukrainian crew, bring in their Turkish replacement, go to Russia, come back and continue. So the events in the world change a lot. Having said that, the traditional traditional verticals like retail and etc. have impact because the market prices change depending on the events and that occur. However, the pattern, the social aspects have more longevity.
So if we move on to practical terms, and I would ask you, how can businesses leverage the data to make better decisions and also drive innovation?
Okay, so from my experience in the market, I mean, most of the organizations use data in some shape or form to analyze their performance, their business performance, from a corner shop using some spreadsheets to more high volume transaction data. Using data removes the part of the gut feel. So all decisions across the organizations are taken based on information and statistics. Moreover, at least what we work with customers is to, because most at the top level, they have their own key performance indicators, their KPI measurements, their performance management. And one of the things that we work with customers is to have those indicators across the organization. So if we're looking at, I don't know, revenue as a metric in terms of growth, we try to put that metric across all departments who are revenue generating or cost saving or contribution. It depends on the businesses and the entity that we work on.
What would you say are the risks associated with data collection, storage, analysis?
So one of the biggest challenges that we find in the market is so first of all, one of the biggest benefits is that now we have cloud and everything is on cloud, and cloud is supposed to be secure, and we consume, the costs are depending on the consumption, etc. Having said that, everything has its own security risks. So one of the things that we take care of is purely that. Let me explain. So today everyone is connected, data is coming from everywhere, IoTs, and all devices available. So if you don't secure all points across your organization, you are at risk of losing that information or being hacked. Last week or the week before, I was at a conference in Cyprus. It was a shipping conference whereby there was a lot of emphasis on cybersecurity, especially now with Starlink. You have offices running around in the sea now with the ships, and there is where the risk is. because if you're not protected well as an organization, you might literally get someone to take control of your vessels today. So and this is the extreme the extreme part. Having said that, in other areas you might lose data, or it must cost you a lot of money. Because at the end of the day, being held at ransom just because you did not spend enough money to secure your information is too expensive.
So you might be at risk, and also your clients
Yeah,
could
definitely.
be at risk. So obviously that's what, how can a business manage these risks, and what are some of the best practices for data management? How
Yes.
to manage your data, not with just security, but even with other areas of management?
So there are many levels of security, and most of them go deeply technical. But if we look at the cloud platforms, because we only deploy cloud platforms because of the value it brings to our customers. So mostly today we use enterprise platforms, and these enterprise platforms are cost a fraction of what it used to be in the past. So that is why we work a lot on cloud platforms. The cloud providers, and we work a lot with Microsoft and Databricks, have cloud adoption frameworks, which you need to be constantly certified and well knowledgeable about. I mean, you need to have the expertise to deploy the right best practices for every cloud implementation. And more than that is the networking. So most of the security starts at networking level. Then from a data perspective, then you have data governance, where all data points are secured, depending on the nature of the data. So you have, so if you have credit cards, if you have names, surnames, etc., you have the GDPRs, ISOs, all the rest are covered by data governance principles, which is part of an implementation of a data and analytics project today.
What would your message be towards the businesses when it comes to collecting the data, using data, and also securing the data?
First
If
of
you
all,
had to
find the ideal partner. So I worked a lot with large businesses, I must say, who have built spreadsheet systems on the cloud, which are not scalable, have a lot of trust issues from the customers and from their own users, and that is where you start losing credibility. You invest a lot in such systems, but at the end of the day, it doesn't become. You don't take the return on investment.
it's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable at all. So build the proper infrastructure, because at the end of the day, it might not be cheap now, but in the long run, it will give back the return on investment very easily. To give you an example, we mentioned retail beforehand. So if you're ordering wrongly or sizes, that is a waste of profit at the end of the day. So if you calculate that and multiply times the number of wrong sizes and wrong shoes that you've ordered, it might pay back the project in the first place by simply ordering correctly. So this is my advice to organizations: look for a good partner.
And obviously this would in turn reflect on the management of the data and the security of
Definitely.
the data. Because obviously you have the responsibility of your customers as well.
Yep.
And you have to, I think, put an emphasis on that as well.
For sure.
Your final concluding comments for this podcast?
So my conclusion is, let's use data and AI. Today with ChatGPT and with large language models, there's a lot to do. We're looking forward to continue putting this in production, because at the end of the day, this is the new era. And whoever is not using ChatGPT, I recommend to use it.
So that's your personal. You as a person, when it comes to AI and data, any particular data that you seek and interests you when it comes to obviously various industries?
We call ourselves data nerds, so we are real nerds. So when the data is beautiful, has a lot of permutations, that is where we have passion. I mean, you have the financial industry, which has a lot of data points. You have also ship management, which is an extremely nice project. We've worked with the European Maritime and Safety Agency. To give you an example, the data that we saw was amazing because we had all the movements of the ships in the world every 5 minutes. So it's massive. So that was a huge, very big
and maritime
project.
can be very busy, right?
Very big project, very big project. It was a very interesting data point. Having said that, then you have the other stuff like education. So you have the student journey and so on. So as all data is beautiful, to be honest. So we are, as I said, we are data nerds, and every data which has a lot of data points for us is very interesting.
And I think even when it comes to AI, potentially this obviously AI can contribute massively when it comes to data because you're getting data
Absolutely.
all the time. So you would see that what changes or what things would you anticipate that we'll be seeing even in the near future?
I mean, we were very lucky. Last year we started off with a focused AI department. And when we finished all the competency and the methodology, the best practices, ChatGPT happened. So that is where all work started from a text box, I say. So everyone now comes to us to ask for a text box where their customers or their users enter data into a text box, and from there they get everything. The only problem is that the data is scattered. So as a process, you need to bring the data together, then you put AI on top. I think there's a lot of value. The discussion has accelerated strongly, and I think this is the time where the value will start helping organizations automate. My idea is that humans need to become more thinkers and more knowledge workers than data entry operators. Because in some cases, I see too many humans doing the same thing for long periods of time, and that to me it's a pain. So this is why I ended up into the industry to automate, and so I hope that AI will bring that forward.
So on a human level, we need to change as well, obviously,
Yes.
to pick up with the pace of the fast-changing world. And I think that would all give us a push forward if we adapt to changes more quickly.
It will give us more time to be more human. At the end of the day, it will give us more time to reduce the amount of time we spend at work, hopefully doing some other interesting stuff, and hopefully elevate the human beings to a different level. And hopefully we don't see more of these wars, but we focus on technology, which is more important in my opinion.
Thank you for that beautiful message. Thank you, Stefan Farrugia. That brings us to the end of today's podcast. Do reach out if there's a message you want to put forward. If there's a guest you would like us to have on this podcast, please do come forward, and I hope you continue watching us from one time to the next. Thanks to the European Digital Innovation Hub, powered by MDIA Malta Digital Innovation Authority, for these podcasts. And we'll catch you next time.